Hello everybody. I'm going to be talking today about Sasha and Lilly, Curse of the Immortals. This is a PC game available on Steam. It's a 16-bit style RPG that looks to be made with RPG Maker or some similar software. The game begins with the two girls, Sasha and Lilly, escorting a hooded man into caverns in search of something sinister. The girls aren't thrilled to be helping out this obviously devious man, and make reference to the fact that if they don't help him, they're going to be out on the streets. It doesn't take long before Donovan, the hooded man, makes his motives clear, and poor Sasha is possessed by an evil spirit, and the two girls are left behind in the caverns. The game fades away, and we meet one of our other main characters, a young man named Griffin. He's a member of the town's fighter guild, but it becomes apparent that while he may be a member of the guild, he's not really wanted there. There's some backstory about how his father used to be the head of the guild, but something bad has obviously happened, and he's not really wanted in the guild. As one final chance of redemption, he's sent off on a quest to kill hobgoblins in a local cave, although he's really not expected to complete the quest. The brave young warrior sets out to eliminate the hobgoblins, only to run away in terror and fatefully find the trapped Sasha and Lilly. In true RPG, you help me and I'll help you style, Griffin agrees to take the girls to the town doctor if they help him clear out the hobgoblin cave. After taking care of the hobgoblins, they head back to town. From there the game opens up a bit, so let's talk about gameplay at this point. So far the game has pretty much been on rails. You can't do anything except the quest that's been given to you. But now that you're in town, it opens up a bit more, and you have the ability to track down some side quests. There's nothing that really differentiates side quests in terms of it popping up and saying this is a main quest or this is a side quest. They look identical, but generally you have to seek out the side quests a bit more, and you don't automatically complete them as the game progresses. The rewards from the side quest and from the regular quest varies from things such as gold, runes, equipment, and experience. As an example of an interesting side quest with a nice reward, when you're in town you start talking to an apple farmer who's complaining that his apples keep disappearing. After talking around to some of the villagers, you realize that there are two kids who are stealing the apples, and the reason they're stealing the apples is they want to make a potion to attract fairies. And at this point, one of the characters, Lily, steps up and says, you know what, this is kind of silly, but let's help the kids out anyway, and let's humor them. So at that point you head out into the open world and you track down apples that are growing wild in the field, and at the same time you build up some experience from battles. Once you've collected enough apples, you take them back to the boy and girl, and the boy makes a fairy potion for you that you immediately use, and he asks you to go down to one of the waterfalls and see if the fairies show up. As you're making your way down to the waterfall, you can see fairies on the map, and as soon as you get a little closer they disappear. And then once you finally arrive at the waterfall, all the fairies appear, and they love the potion so much that they actually mistake you for food and try to attack you, and a boss battle of sorts commences. Once you've won, you head back to town, and at that point the boy agrees that okay, he's not going to make any more potions and he'll find something else to do, and he rewards you with a poison rune. And at that point, let's talk about combat. And I personally thought that was a pretty interesting quest. They could have just made it so it was he found the fairies and he came back and everything was happy and it was a generic story. But no, it was something kind of fun and different. So I appreciate that on a side quest. Anyways, jumping back to combat. Combat is definitely one of the highlights of this game in my opinion. At the start of each battle, all of the characters get a turn and then the enemy gets a turn. So you go back and forth. Unlike traditional RPG games, there is no mana bar for special moves in this game. Instead, each character has a choice of 5 different options in combat. They can use an item, or they can do 3 different attacks, each that are a little more stronger than the other, and lastly they can use a party attack. Using anything except for your basic attack uses up some of your 100 stamina. So there's some real strategy in how hard you want to attack. You want to use your big attacks at the start and then chance running out of stamina, because if you do try and do a move and you don't have enough stamina for it, your party member can't do it and they actually lose a turn. So there's some nice strategy there in picking when you want to use your stamina and when you want to just kind of ping away slowly at the enemies, especially boss fights where you want to keep your stamina high until you've really got something to do with it. In addition, you've got a team attack meter that slowly builds up as you're doing battle, and when it reaches the top you can do a combination of team attacks, and it's similar to Chrono Trigger in that the attacks you do are based upon your party composition. So sometimes you've got things that are major damage attacks to one character, or attacks that do a little bit of damage to all the enemies but they heal you in the process. And then as you get new characters, which does happen as the story progresses, because you start off with 3 people in your party, but you do get more, you get some very interesting effects that you can do in the team moves. So it does add some nice complexity to the game. There are different runes that you can equip before combat. For example, there's the poison rune that you got for doing the fairy quest, and the poison rune, obviously, it poisons the enemy, so on their turn they take a little bit of damage. So you've got a choice there. Do you put the poison rune on your heaviest attack so that it does a whole lot of poison damage, or do you put it on your lightest attack so that as you're building up... Oh, and if you'd like a free Steam key for this game, go ahead and comment green jelly bean in the comments. First person to do it wins. Good luck. Another addition to combat is combat pets. In the 3 hours I spent playing the game, I only found one combat pet, which was a python. And you choose which combat pet you want to bring in before the battle starts, or actually you equip it before the battle starts. And depending on which combat pet you have, you get different bonuses. For the snake, as long as you were using him, you got an attack bonus to all of your characters. And it was made pretty clear in the text of the game that there are other pets you can find, and as you level up, the pet levels up, so the bonus increases as well. As the game progresses, there's a heavy mix of puzzles thrown in. Almost all of them are block pushing puzzles that get more complicated as the game progresses. If you make a mistake, there's always a crystal nearby to reset the puzzle back to its original state. This is a nice feature, as it took me far too many attempts on some of these puzzles, and if I had had to leave the screen and then come back to reset the puzzle, that definitely would not have been good. My only complaint with the game is that the puzzles are sprinkled in a little too heavily. I'm afraid eventually the puzzles were going to outpace my desire to try and figure them out. Oftentimes it was 3 puzzle rooms, one right after another, which takes away from the novelty of the puzzles and almost made them a bother. This is subject to opinion, of course. If you like puzzles, then this is even more icing on what is already a pretty nice slice of RPG cake. The game looks great. There's only so much that can be done with RPG Maker type tools, but the team that made this game did a great job with the assets that they have. Traveling between the different areas on the map, each area has its own distinctive look. This isn't just a boring cave, trees, and grass world. Each area has its own style. The land south of Riverdale has farms, vibrant pink trees, and animals walking around. The swamp area north of Python Town is dreary with a muted tone compared to the other areas. There's details in each area, such as extra graphics, such as a well, butterflies, flowers, things that don't serve any purpose other than to make the game look pleasant, which it succeeds at. One nice detail is that when you do go into the battle screens, they aren't just static, there are animations going on in the background. For example, the battle screens when inside a castle, they have spikes that are going up and down in the background, and some of them have animals going back and forth, which it's a nice touch. The music and sound effects are solid, but nothing outstanding. The battle music is especially on par, and it isn't always the same tune. There are little things that this game does so right. Talking to NPCs is interesting, as some of them are just plain silly, but none of them are encyclopedias of unnecessarily dialogue. This kept me tracking down all the NPCs in town, which isn't something I always do in RPGs. Now, I hate when you're trying to figure out what to do next in the quest and you talk to somebody and it's just paragraph after paragraph of nothing that has anything to do with the game. I know it's trying to do world building, but at the same time, especially for games like these, I just want to do the quest and I want to see what's next. So throwing in small doses of humor instead of encyclopedia worth of backstory, for me, it's the right choice. There's a built-in map that updates itself and tells you the names of the towns. Towns have portals that allow you to warp back to previous towns, which saves a lot of unnecessary walking. One big thing I like is characters who don't participate in battles or who pass out during battles still get XP for that battle. One of my pet peeves in other games, especially some of the older Final Fantasy games, is during boss fights that when your characters pass out but you still manage to defeat the boss, and then all of your other characters level up like 2 or 3 times, but your character who died, you know, even if they died in like the last hit of the game, they don't get that experience. And for me, I don't know what it is, I can't stand it when my characters aren't leveling at the same progression, so I enjoy that aspect of this game. Sasha and Lilly is a really solid RPG game. If you can look past it being an RPG Maker style game, then it's great. I know for some people that's an automatic deal breaker because they just don't like the look or the tools that are available for those style games, which is why I've mentioned it several times. If that's not an issue for you, then I highly recommend this game. It's available for cheap on Steam, and if you've listened to this entire video, then you know how you can get a free Steam copy from me. Enjoy.